Self-proclaimed republics. Joining me now, Mark Dubowitz, Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Mark, first of all, thanks for joining us. And Greg Palcott, hi. Greg Palcott is reporting that there might not be any voting in Donetsk tomorrow. This is home to about 1 million people there. Ukraine government allowing people to vote in other districts, though. So, Mark, do you believe the election will take place at all in other parts of the country? And talk about the fallout if they do take place or if they don't.
Well, it's not clear that the election is going to take place in eastern Ukraine. The pro-Russian insurgents are fanning the flames of violence, are intimidating voters there. It's going to be very difficult to have a free and fair election in eastern Ukraine. And this is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants. He wants to cause a crisis. He wants to fan the flames of civil war and then present himself as the only guarantor of stability. It's very much taken from Putin's playbook, and it's very concerning.
Yeah, but although he wants the world to believe that he's for the choice of the Ukrainian people, and his hand, his hand is not in that cookie jar, but this interference has Putin's fingerprints all over it. Is this legal?
Arthel, it's certainly not legal, and it's certainly something that has to be countered by the United States, because Putin has got actually Russian special forces who are working with pro-Russian insurgents in eastern Ukraine, while he's got tens of thousands of troops sitting on Ukraine's border. This is clear, naked intimidation, and this is exactly the message that Putin is trying to send to Europe and to Washington, that he is the major domo of power politics and that things will not happen without his blessing.
But Mark, why did it get down to the wire? I mean, everybody saw this coming. Who should have stepped in to prevent this, and what should they have done?
This is another example of the absence of U.S. leadership. You know, the Obama administration wants to lead international crises from behind. They've been relying on the Europeans to come forward and actually try and assert themselves. The Europeans are badly divided. There are a number of European businesses that are hooked on Russian cash. The Europeans are not going to move without U.S. leadership. This is incumbent on Washington and on the Obama administration to send a clear message to Putin that we will not tolerate his revanchism. We will not tolerate taking bites out of Eastern and Central Europe.
So apart from the tough sanctions that have already been brought down by the United States, what more should the Obama administration do?
Arthur, there aren't any tough sanctions that actually have been imposed on Russia. We've really imposed sanctions against certain individuals who are close to Putin, a handful of Russian banks, small banks, but there are not tough sanctions. There's much more that can be done. For example, denying Western oil and gas technology to Russia, which is highly dependent on Western technology to develop these energy sources. There's a lot more that can be done economically, politically, to send a message to Putin that we will not tolerate land grabs.
Meanwhile, China and Russia, they're doing business as usual, just, signing an agreement for a $400 billion natural gas exchange.
Well, that's exactly right. Though, it's worth pointing out that for Russia to honor that deal, they're going to have to do some serious drilling in Siberia, and they're going to have to depend on Western technology to get that natural gas out of the ground.
So then maybe that's where we step in.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think Russia has an economic Achilles heel in its energy sector. It's a source of its power, but it's a source of its weakness. I would say one other thing about this Russian-Chinese deal, it's another example of how Russia and China, Iran, Syria, a kind of axis of grievances is forming against the U.S.-led global order. And, it was Nixon who brilliantly divided Russia from China in the 1970s. Unfortunately, President Obama is bringing Russia and China together in a coalition against the United States.
Well, that begs a follow-up, but unfortunately I'm against a hard out here, so I've got to go. Mark Dubowitz, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, and we will be right back.